Today we're going to be going over how to replace the controller in an Apollo City Pro. The tools required for this repair are a 4mm Allen key, 2.5mm Allen key, a pair of flush cutters, and electrical tape. The first step in changing the controller is of course getting access to it. To do that we need to open up this cover and the cavity. So I'm going to take my 4mm Allen key and begin by removing this kickstand. Once everything is loose, we should just be able to pop it off like that. First thing I'm going to do is cut this electrical tape or heat shrink covering the charging port connectors here. That way I can remove this piece and give myself more room to work. I'm going to continue to get access to the main cavity. My 4mm Allen key. Now that all the screws are free, you can remove this plate and set it aside. Now the controller is located in the front portion of the cavity here. You can see there's lots of cables. Looks pretty busy in there. First thing we're going to do is lift up this charging port connector from the battery. I'm going to grab this U-shaped gasket because it likes to fall off and disappear. I'm going to keep it secure. Now, depending on if your scooter has been worked on before, it may or may not have zip ties holding the wires in bunches. This one hasn't been worked on before, so I'm going to start snipping those off. So I have my replacement controller right here. The original controller is still installed inside the cavity. As you can see, we're working on an Apollo City Pro, a dual motor version. The Apollo City regular controller, the single motor version, the controller looks slightly different and it has a few less cables. There's not more, there's less. The technique I'm going to show you should make you able to install the regular controller into the regular model. Even though that's not explicitly what I'm showing you, the process is the same, and if you follow my technique, you should have no problem. So the first thing we're going to do on the original controller, as you can see all the heat shrinking, all the things connecting the cables, we're going to cut all of that off, every one we find, with our trusty pair of flush cutters. I'm disconnecting the battery first because it's always safer to work when there is no power source connected. That's the only thing I'm going to unplug right now. Now the reason I want to free all the cables is because I want to do what I call a one-for-one swap technique. This really greatly simplifies the process of installing a new controller, because instead of unplugging all these wires and then saying which one does these connectors go, is it this one, is it this one, is it this one, is it this one, we're just going to unplug one at a time, plug it into the new controller. That way you have a foolproof system that is very hard to mess up. So for example, I have this cable coming from the front. This is front motor phase wires. All I'm going to do is unplug one. So this is the old controller side. So on the new controller side, I'm going to match this up and say, okay, this is on the right side of the controller. Once I put it in, the controller goes put on the scooter like that. So the yellow is going to plug into the yellow. And I'm going to continue. And unplug the green, it's going to plug into the green here. Unplug the blue, it's going to plug into the blue. scooter or the controller is designed in such a way that it is hard to plug in the wrong connectors to the wrong spot. As you can see, this fits well in here, but there's no other connector that it actually physically fits into. Each motor has the same connections. That's the only possible point where you could get confused. I'm going to keep going until I have nothing left connected to the original controller. So I have this cable coming. If you're ever wondering which end is the controller end and which end is the component that connects to the controller, all you need to do is look at your replacement controller and say, what type of connector is this? Is this male or female? This is male, so I'm looking for the female that it plugs into right here. Now every piece except for this main battery connector is plugged in on my new controller. Now I can go ahead and start removing the old controller. To do that, I need to take these screws securing it from the front and just uninstall them. So these screws take a 2.5mm Allen key, and I'm just going to go ahead. There's 2 screws on each side. To get to the bottom one, you need to go through a small channel. Space can be a little tight. Now that we've uninstalled the 4 screws securing the controller, the old controller, we're just going to pull it out of the way. There will be a bit of a rat's nest of cables, but as long as you are careful, it should come out without a hitch. Now all these connectors are already connected in the right spot if we've done everything correctly. And all I'm doing is taking some electrical tape and re-securing the connections, making sure last line of defense from moisture and making sure they stay connected properly. If you have heat shrink and a heat gun and are capable of using those, feel free to use those. The electrical tape will work just fine for most people. Now that all the connectors are secure, you can go ahead and start installing the controller into the frame. I'm going to take my 2.5mm Allen key again, using the same screws I removed from before. I like to start with installing the top 2 screws. There's a lot easier access, and once those are in, you know the bottom 2 are lined up correctly. So now I'm going for the bottom 2 screws. These ones are a bit trickier because you need to rest the screw on your Allen key as you put it through this hole until you make contact. Now the controller is secured to the scooter. We can start putting things back where they need to go. The only 2 things that should not be connected at this point: the main connector from the battery to the controller and the charging port to the battery. First thing I'm going to do is take these things from the neck with the L-shaped gaskets and place them back in the holes here. I'm going to connect the power finally. If you hear a little click, a little pop, that's normal. And before I continue, it's always wise to make sure everything is working as it should. Because the worst thing in the world is when you close up the scooter and then you find something's not right, so you need to reopen everything again. So I'm just going to test, put these cables back into these slots. The remaining cables we want to try and bunch together Before I do anything, I'm going to cover the battery connector with electrical tape, just like all the other connectors. Push them into the space. Doesn't need to be fancy, just needs to fit. And of course, the charging port is not being stuffed down there. That needs to come outside to connect with the outer shell. And I saved this U-shaped gasket before, just like these front ones. I'm putting it on, pushing it down there. Now I should be able to install the top plate, install the outer shell, connect the charging port cable, and call it a day. So now I'm installing the top plate. Now there's only one way that this goes on correctly. This is not the correct way. You'll notice these two holes are closer together than these two holes. So there is a correct way to put it on, and only one way you can put it on. So once that's lined up, I'm taking my 4mm Allen key, and I'm going to install screws in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'm taking the side, the first one from the side, skipping one, installing, skipping, installing, skipping, installing. Now that that's secure, we can take our outer shell, connect the charging port, and like every other connector, electrical tape. Now the only thing to keep in mind when putting this on is making sure that this brake cable here isn't falling over one of these screw holes. It can cause lots of grief. Now that all those are on, I can finish up with my kickstand. Now the last thing to do is just to make sure that the edges are flush all around. If there's any little bumps, usually just need a good squeeze. And that's it. Just change the controller on an Apollo City.